Deep beneath the streets of Dearborn, Michigan, there exists a network of tunnels that most people have never heard about. These passageways once connected Henry Ford's empire, linking his factories, his museum, and even his private estate. But there's one tunnel that leads to a place that has been deliberately forgotten, a laboratory where the Motor King conducted experiments that would change the world forever, and some that were perhaps too dangerous to ever be revealed. The year is 1927, and Henry Ford stands at the height of his power. His Model T has transformed America, putting 15 million automobiles on the roads and creating the modern middle class. But Ford is not a man content with past achievements. In the winter of that year, he orders the construction of a secret facility, one that would be hidden from public view, away from the prying eyes of competitors and government regulators alike. This facility would come to be known among a select few as Site 7, though most would never know it existed at all. The location chosen for this mysterious laboratory was ingenious. On the surface, it appeared to be nothing more than a standard power station, one of several that fed electricity to Ford's sprawling River Rouge Complex. The building itself was designed by Albert Kahn, the famous industrial architect who had created so many of Ford's other facilities. But beneath the ordinary exterior of red brick and steel, there was something extraordinary. Below ground level, Kahn had designed a 3-story subterranean structure, accessible only through the tunnel network that Ford had commissioned years earlier. The official records list the building simply as Powerhouse Station 7, completed in December of 1927. Construction workers who built the surface structure had no idea what lay beneath their feet. The underground excavation was handled by a separate crew, workers handpicked by Ford himself, many of them immigrants who spoke little English. They were paid exceptionally well for the time, receiving nearly double the standard wage, but they were required to sign confidentiality agreements that threatened severe legal consequences if they ever spoke about what they built. What was Henry Ford hiding in this underground fortress? The answer lies in understanding the man himself. Ford was not merely an industrialist, he was an inventor, an innovator, and increasingly in his later years, an obsessive thinker who believed he could solve any problem through mechanical ingenuity and determination. By the late 1920s, Ford had become interested in projects far beyond automobiles. He wanted to revolutionize agriculture, energy production, and manufacturing processes in ways that even his own company found too radical. Inside Site 7, Ford assembled a team of engineers and scientists whose names never appeared in any company directory. Among them was a brilliant young physicist named Dr. Marcus Holbrook, who had been conducting research on electromagnetic propulsion at the University of Michigan. There was also Catherine Brennan, one of the few female engineers working in Detroit at the time, who specialized in materials science. Together with a rotating cast of machinists, electricians, and experimental technicians, they formed what Ford called his Special Projects Division. The laboratory itself was unlike anything else in the Ford empire. The main level, 2 stories underground, housed a massive open workspace filled with machine tools, testing equipment, and prototype vehicles in various stages of completion. The air smelled perpetually of machine oil, ozone from electrical experiments, and the acrid tang of welding. The walls were lined with blackboards covered in equations and technical drawings. In one corner stood a device that looked like a giant copper coil wrapped around a steel frame, connected to a bank of batteries and capacitors. In another area, there were engines that bore no resemblance to anything Ford was producing in his factories above ground. The deepest level, 3 stories down, contained something even more unusual. This floor was divided into sealed chambers, each one dedicated to a different experimental program. One room focused on synthetic fuel development. Ford, ever the pragmatist, was concerned about America's dependence on petroleum. He believed that fuels could be manufactured from agricultural products, particularly soybeans and hemp. In this chamber, chemists worked to develop processes that could convert plant matter into usable gasoline substitutes. Another chamber was dedicated to what Ford called his electric dream. Despite being known as the man who perfected the gasoline engine, Ford had never abandoned his interest in electric vehicles. In this room, engineers tested advanced battery designs, including a peculiar system that used sodium and sulfur in a molten state to store electrical energy. The batteries they developed could power a vehicle for nearly 200 miles on a single charge, an astonishing achievement for the era. But Ford kept this work secret, fearing that it would undermine his current business model and create chaos in his supply chains. The most mysterious chamber, however, was the one at the far end of the third level. This room was kept locked even from most of the Site 7 staff. Only Ford himself and Dr. Holbrook had keys. Those who caught glimpses inside reported seeing strange apparatus, including what appeared to be a small aircraft frame, but one without any visible means of propulsion. There were rumors among the limited staff that Ford and Holbrook were attempting to develop an anti-gravity device, inspired by the work of Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Now, before you dismiss this as pure fantasy, consider the context. The late 1920s and early 1930s were a time of incredible technological optimism. Scientists genuinely believed that gravity could be manipulated through electromagnetic fields. Major newspapers regularly published articles about inventors claiming to have discovered anti-gravity principles. Ford, who was deeply influenced by his friendship with Thomas Edison, was fascinated by these possibilities. Whether or not his experiments yielded any practical results is another matter entirely. But the historical record shows that he was certainly willing to fund such research. Life at Site 7 followed a peculiar rhythm. Workers entered through one of 3 tunnel access points. The main entrance connected directly to Ford's engineering laboratory, the massive structure that served as the public face of his research efforts. 2 other tunnels provided emergency exits, one leading to the River Rouge plant and another connecting to a small building near Ford Airport. The tunnels themselves were remarkable feats of engineering, lined with white tile and lit by electric bulbs spaced every 20 feet. A narrow-gauge railway ran through the main tunnel, allowing for the transport of equipment and materials without ever bringing anything to the surface where it might be seen. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more hidden histories and forgotten places, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Security at Site 7 was extraordinarily tight. Armed guards, officially employed as night watchmen for the power station above, actually spent most of their time monitoring the tunnel entrances. A complex system of coded knocks and password phrases changed weekly. Ford himself visited the facility frequently, often arriving late at night via the tunnel that connected to his Fairlane estate. He would spend hours walking through the laboratory, examining prototypes, questioning engineers, and scribbling notes in his personal journal. The work conducted at Site 7 remained secret throughout the late 20s and into the early 30s, but as the Great Depression deepened, even Henry Ford found it difficult to justify the enormous expense of maintaining a hidden research facility. In 1932, Ford made the difficult decision to scale back operations at Site 7. Many of the experimental programs were either transferred to more conventional facilities or simply terminated. Dr. Holbrook left Ford's employment and eventually took a position teaching physics at a small college in Ohio. Catherine Brennan disappeared from the historical record entirely, though some researchers believe she continued working in the defense industry under a different name. By 1934, Site 7 was officially closed. The equipment was removed, some of it relocated to other Ford facilities, much of it simply scrapped. The laboratories were stripped bare, the walls repainted, and the chambers converted into storage space for documents and surplus parts. Ford ordered that all records of the Special Projects Division be collected and locked away in his private office. To this day, those records have never been publicly released. But the story doesn't end there. During World War II, the underground facility was briefly reactivated. The US military, desperate for any technological edge against the Axis powers, learned about Ford's secret laboratory and requested permission to use the space for classified defense research. From 1942 to 1945, Site 7 once again hummed with activity. Navy engineers used the deep chambers to test submarine components. Army researchers conducted experiments with synthetic rubber and plastic materials. And in one sealed room, a team of physicists working for the Manhattan Project used the facility's isolation to conduct preliminary calculations for the atomic bomb program, though no actual radioactive materials were ever present. After the war ended, Site 7 fell silent once more. The military pulled out, taking their equipment and their secrets with them. Ford Motor Company used the space sporadically for storage throughout the 1950s and 60s, but by the 70s, even that had ceased. The tunnel entrances were sealed with concrete. The elevator shafts were filled with rubble. The power station above continued to operate, but the workers there had no idea what lay beneath their feet. Eventually, even the power station was demolished in the 1980s, replaced by a modern facility built on a different footprint. Today, if you know where to look, you can still find traces of Site 7. The main tunnel entrance, buried beneath what is now a parking lot near the Ford Engineering Laboratory, occasionally reveals itself when the asphalt cracks and subsides. Urban explorers who have braved the decaying tunnels report finding abandoned rail tracks, rusted gates, and walls still bearing the faded white tiles from Ford's era. One explorer, who wishes to remain anonymous, claims to have found the sealed entrance to the laboratory itself, hidden behind a concrete wall in a flooded section of tunnel. He reported seeing a corroded metal door with the number 7 stamped into its surface. What became of the research conducted at Site 7? Some of it eventually found its way into mainstream Ford products. The synthetic fuel research contributed to the development of agricultural chemicals and plastics. The electric vehicle work, though abandoned in the 30s, was rediscovered in Ford's archives in the 1990s and influenced the company's modern hybrid and electric car programs. As for the more exotic experiments, the anti-gravity research and other fringe projects, they remain mysteries. If Ford and his team achieved any breakthroughs in those areas, no evidence has ever surfaced. The question that haunts researchers is why Ford went to such extraordinary lengths to keep Site 7 secret. The most likely answer is a combination of competitive paranoia and genuine concern about public reaction. Ford had watched as other inventors had their ideas stolen by competitors. He had seen promising technologies suppressed by established industries protecting their interests. By keeping his most radical experiments hidden, he believed he could pursue true innovation without interference. But there may have been darker reasons as well. By the late 20s, Ford had become increasingly controversial. His anti-Semitic views, published in his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, had made him a pariah in many circles. He faced mounting pressure from labor unions, government regulators, and social reformers. Perhaps he feared that if the public knew the full extent of his experimental work, particularly the more unusual projects, he would face even greater scrutiny and opposition. There's also the possibility that some of the experiments at Site 7 simply failed, and Ford, ever conscious of his public image, wanted to bury those failures. The electric vehicle program, for instance, was abandoned not because the technology didn't work, but because Ford calculated that the infrastructure needed to support electric cars simply didn't exist in the 30s. Rather than announce this conclusion and risk looking foolish for having pursued it in the first place, he simply shut down the program and never spoke of it again. The legend of Site 7 has grown over the decades. Some claim that the laboratory is still intact, perfectly preserved beneath the surface, waiting to be rediscovered. Others believe that Ford had the entire facility filled with concrete before his death in 1947, ensuring that its secrets would remain buried forever. There are even those who argue that the whole story is an elaborate hoax, that Site 7 never existed except in the imaginations of conspiracy theorists and urban legend enthusiasts. But the evidence suggests otherwise. Too many pieces of the puzzle fit together too neatly. The tunnel network beneath Dearborn is well documented, confirmed by multiple sources including former Ford employees and telecommunications workers who have accessed the passages. Albert Kahn's architectural records show several commissions from Ford in the late 20s that are listed only as industrial structure, classified with no further details. Financial records from the Ford Motor Company archives show significant expenditures in 1927 and 1928 for construction projects that don't correspond to any known buildings. And then there are the personal testimonies, diary entries and letters from Ford employees, discovered years later, that make oblique references to underground laboratories and secret research programs. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from an unexpected source. In 2003, a demolition crew working on the site of the old Ford Engineering Laboratory discovered a time capsule hidden in the foundation. Inside were newspapers, photographs, and a sealed envelope addressed to future generations. The letter, written by Henry Ford himself and dated 1927, spoke of his dreams for the future of transportation and manufacturing. It mentioned experimental programs being conducted in facilities that the public would never see, work that he hoped would benefit humanity long after his death. The letter concluded with a cryptic sentence that has puzzled researchers ever since. Ford wrote, "The fortress beneath holds keys to kingdoms we have yet to imagine. May those who follow have the wisdom to use them well, and the courage to venture into the deep places where innovation dwells." Was he referring to Site 7 or to something else entirely? We may never know for certain. What we do know is that Henry Ford was a man of extraordinary vision and unshakable determination. He built an automotive empire that changed the world, but he also pursued dreams that most people considered impossible or even foolish. The forgotten fortress, whether it exists as an intact laboratory or merely as a filled-in hole in the ground, represents the hidden history of American innovation, the secret experiments and abandoned projects that never made it into the official story. Today, the land above Site 7 is occupied by modern Ford facilities and corporate offices. Employees park their cars and walk into gleaming buildings, completely unaware of what might lie beneath their feet. The tunnels are sealed, the elevators are filled, and the power station is long gone. But somewhere in the darkness below, behind walls of concrete and steel, the remnants of Henry Ford's most secret laboratory may still exist, waiting for the day when someone decides to excavate the truth. The story of Site 7 reminds us that history is never quite as simple as it appears in textbooks. For every achievement that makes it into the official record, there are countless experiments that end in failure, ideas that were ahead of their time, and projects that were deliberately hidden from view. The Motor King built his empire in plain sight, but he also built a fortress in the shadows, a place where the future was imagined and tested away from the judgment of the present. What other secrets lie buried beneath the industrial landscapes of America? What other forgotten laboratories and abandoned facilities hold the remnants of dreams that were never realized? These questions remind us that the past is not a fixed thing, but a mystery that continues to reveal itself in unexpected ways. The forgotten fortress of the Motor King may be just one example of a much larger phenomenon, a hidden history of innovation that exists parallel to the official narrative we all learned in school. If Henry Ford were alive today, what would he think about the discovery or rediscovery of Site 7? Would he be proud that his secret work finally came to light? Or would he be disappointed that the fortress he built to keep his experiments hidden had failed in its purpose? We can only speculate. But one thing is certain. The man who put America on wheels was also a man who understood the value of keeping certain things hidden until the time was right for them to be revealed. The underground chambers of Site 7, whether they still exist or have been destroyed, represent more than just a forgotten laboratory. They represent the frontier spirit of American innovation, the willingness to take risks and pursue ideas that others considered impossible. They remind us that progress is not always a straight line moving forward, but often involves detours, dead ends, and secret passages that only a few ever know about. So the next time you drive past a Ford facility or see one of their vehicles on the road, remember that behind the familiar blue oval logo lies a history far more complex and mysterious than most people realize. Remember that the Motor King was not just a manufacturer of automobiles, but an experimenter, a dreamer, and a keeper of secrets. And remember that somewhere beneath the streets of Dearborn, there may still be a forgotten fortress, holding on to the echoes of experiments that changed the world, or perhaps were never meant to be known at all. If you found this story fascinating, Please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more hidden histories and forgotten places. The past is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and we'll keep exploring them together, one story at a time.